What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Sci-Fi Network today. Coming at you with another deck profile. Coming at you with a Raccoon, or a Baby Raccoon, deck profile. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the profile, and for those of you who'd like to stay tuned afterwards, I'll explain a little bit more about the deck. Run 3 Baby Panpoko, 3 Baby Raccoon Tantan, 3 Valerifawn, 2 Wind-up Kittens, 1 Kalantosa, 1 Tree Otter, 1 Fabled Cerburrl, 2 Junk Synchrons, and 1 Beast King Barbaros. That is a total of 17 monsters. Going on to the spell cards, run 3 Obedient School, like you should in this deck, 3 Ayers Rock Sunrise. Now, there really is no downfall to this card. You could run 2, you could run 3. I like running 3 because it's just another monster. 1 Soul Charge, 2 Forbidden Lance, 1 Pot of Dichotomy. Now, that is strictly not for your main deck. It's to cycle out your Synchros, because this deck is Synchro and Exceed heavy, and they are all different types, so that is what that is for. And Staples, Dark Hole, and 2 Mystical Space Typhoons. You guys could play around with Raigeki. I haven't got one yet to play around with it, so that's another thing. For a total of 13 spell cards. Going on to the traps. Got a 2 Mistakes, because you do not add anything from your deck to your hand. 2 Fiendish Chains, or you can play the Breakthrough skills, whichever way you want to go with that. 1 Solemn Warning. 2 Blackhorn Heavens, 1 Bottomless, 1 Torrential, and 1 Compulsory Activation Device. Very simple. For a total of, I believe, 10 traps. 11 traps, excuse me. Okay, moving on to the extra deck. Tokens out of the way. You run 3, number 64. He is you have to run 3 of him. You guys might get away with 2, but I've cycled through all 3 of them in one match very easily. 1 Daigusto Phoenix, and 1 Gachi. That is all I run for the Exceed monsters. You guys could play around with them, but I just do not have the room. For Synchros, I got 1 Fabled Unicore. I want to call him Unicorn, but he's Unicore. 1 Photon Pulse Dragon. 1 Naturia Beast. 1 Armades. 1 Junk Warrior. 1 Ally Justice Catastor, 1 Goyo Guardian, 1 Black Rose Dragon, 1 Leo, and 1 Shooting Quasar Dragon. Now, if you guys do not want to go the Quasar route with this deck, this is not meant to get out Quasar in 1 turn or 2 turns. It's something to be there to use if you have the materials available. That is why you run, or that is why I run, a Photon Pulse Dragon. You do not... He's not a must. you could take these two out, and you guys can play around with there's other level 4s that are really good. I know there's a Herald. I don't remember his full name. He's an actual very good card to use too. And also you guys can maybe play around with a little bit more synchros. Maybe throw in a couple downer magicians and stuff like that. There's so much you can do with these. They're great Exceed and synchro pools. And they're very, very fast and agile as well. Now, like I said, I run Dark Hole instead of Raigeki because of Obedience School. You cannot activate it unless you have no monsters on the field. So if I have like one random token and I don't feel like ramming and I draw into a Dark Hole, it frees up my board to be able to go ahead and run my Obedience School. Just simple as that. I do side into another Mystical Space Typhoon. I do sometimes side out Pot of Dichotomy. Depends on how quick my deck is flowing against my opponent. If I'm running into like Shadows or Burning Abyss or something that might slow down my exceeding and my synchro capabilities, simply side it out for something else that might be more useful against those kind of things. Explaining I prefer the Fiendish Chain over the Breakthrough skills or any other negation ability for effects because simply can't run Skill Drain in here because it'll shut down your deck as well. And if you Fiendish Chain them, it stays on the field and it stops them from attacking long enough for you to exceed for a number 64 and steal its attack and run over it that way, or use your other boosters to get over them that way. Going into the monsters, explaining a little bit of the monster setup. I do run the Tree Otter because the simple effect is very good. If you have another beast on the field, you can bump any one of your monsters up by 1,000. That is a good way of getting over your opponent's monsters because when the tokens come out that these guys create, they're always equal. They never actually really have a good chance of running over. He gives it that little bit of edge, and with the Valerifawn, with Tantan, with Baby Panpoko, there's always a good way of getting him out of your deck, so you never it excludes the needs for searchers or prey you're drawing into him. And he gives your tokens or what if you're boosting off something on your side of the field, you can boost it even higher. Or if your token is boosting off your opponent's monster, you could boost the token for the turn to get over your opponent's monster, so it's an easy beatdown that way. This is a beatdown heavy deck, hence the trap setup. It's all monster removal. That is what this deck wins around. There's no submitting your opponent a different way or little bits by bits. It is meant to throw as many monsters out there as possible, exceed in synchro for really big creatures that trample over your opponent, or getting tokens out that tramples over your opponent if he's exceeding more or synchroing more heavy monsters than you. It's meant to counteract with that. It is kind of a controlling deck with the back row that I have set up to kind of reduce the amount of stuff my opponent throws at me. That's about the most controlling aspect of the game, other than the monster lineup, as going first turn Naturia Beast or throwing Fabled Unicore out there. So you do have the ability to have control, but it is equal one way versus the other way. It's not more of a control deck versus a beatdown deck. It's kind of right in the middle with everything. It literally is a toolbox. You sit down with your opponent, you figure out how his deck runs, you open up your toolbox, you get the right tool to defeat it, and then you go on from there. You might win, first turn because you drew into the nuts on the hand, or, you could just simply lose first turn, figure out how to side into it, and then they will be able to figure out how to overcome that depending on what tools you have lined up. Now, like I said, there's many ways of building this deck. This is not the only way because they're not really necessarily an archetype. That's why I like this deck. I haven't even looked up to see if there's any more coming out, but with the Valerifawn, gave them a nice little boost. And it kind of takes me back into the old school effects the old school decks where it's a beast deck, or it's a it has a theme, not an archetype. So these guys are not an archetype yet of any way that I know of. There's only 2 monsters out, which could simply change. I have no idea what's Konami or is expected of Konami in the future, but simply this is how I have it built. So feel free to leave in the comments what you think that I might change or anything like that, and I will update a video if you guys leave enough comments. Subscribe if you guys leave enough comments on what you would like to see different. I will change it for you. I will go to my locals. I will the locals at Sci-Fi Factory, which I go to. This is what I support. I will play the deck the way you guys suggest, and I'll explain, and I'll leave a video on how the deck ran and how everything it was set up, and how, so that you guys can understand, and on what, if it aided me or if it actually worked against my favor, so you guys can see how it works before you guys go out and get it, or maybe that's what you guys are already working on. So like I said, thanks for tuning in to Sci-Fi Network. I'll talk to you guys later.